A 2019 report showed a 4,500% increase in girls that now identify as male. And so you can imagine after 4 more years of this indoctrination, it must be at 10,000%. Because you see 32% rate, of kids, and I don't even think that's the true figures with all of the parents that come up to me and let me know about what's going on. The same parent that was involved with the university student has her son last year in grade 10 with a trans activist in the class, LGBTQ activist, who used their trusted position to force the children to watch a drag queen video. And the child said, I am not comfortable with this. I want to be absent. And what if I was sick? She said, he, she, or whoever it was, the teacher was, said, then you will fail. This is extortion. This is intimidation. This is happening to 15-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 4-year-olds. It has got to stop, and we've got to rise up ferociously in defense of our children. I know moms whose daughters have been lured into this and have committed suicide. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight on August 13th. Woo, middle of August. Summer's going so fast. This is the Empower Hour, and we have an amazing show for you tonight. It is going to be a rerun of a presentation I did about 2 years ago, and it has 500,000 views. And so we know that the content is important. And what I'm going to ask you to do in advance is that you share this presentation with as many parents and citizens that you possibly can. It is going to prove without a shadow of a doubt that the SOGI sexual orientation and gender identity resource that's being implemented in schools across the nation and around the world is actually called comprehensive sexuality education from the United Nations and the World Health Organization, but it does go by other names to kind of mask what it really is. And they know we're on to them. The propaganda is failing. The attack against our children is to a level now where parents cannot turn a blind eye. It is it's like a disease going through our schools right now, and I'm going to say a deadly infectious disease. And a part of this intro tonight, as I lead into the movie, I'm going to share my screen, is going to be a 911 call for as many parents as possible to homeschool their kids. And even a big shout out and a call out to grandparents to help and do whatever you need to do. Those RRSPs, I mean, they're great. It's great to be responsible and have retirement savings, but the government could turn around and, that could all disappear very quickly unless you got it invested in silver or gold, of course. But that's another topic for another time. But my point is that it's very, very hard for our young married couples today who are starting families to make ends meet with the cost of living, with the cost either of rent. And if somebody is fortunate enough to own a home, the risk of them not being able to pay a mortgage when the interest rates go up, it's cost of food, it's just unbelievable what we're experiencing here in Canada. But what we can do is the greatest control is that of the future, and that's the minds and hearts of our kids. And that's what we're here on the front line to protect. And that's why I'm asking that you share this show tonight. So I'm just going to share my screen. It'll come up on our big, beautiful map. And from there, let me just enter full screen so that you can see everything. All right. Where I'm going to start is just a couple of updates. I say that this was 2 years ago, and I've been fighting since 2017 to bring awareness to what is going on in the schools with them sexualizing our children. And it's not even like you can opt out, because they've managed to include it into PE, into home ec, into reading, writing, and arithmetic. It is just all encompassing. And so what we recently launched, I've been in partnership with a new international organization called International Coalition for Children. I met these wonderful ladies, Rachel and Angela from Australia, back in, I think it was January. And we started thinking about this, what would be the purpose of this international coalition. And we began to reach out. Others began to hear by word of mouth about what we were doing. And so we have support in Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, the UK, Wales, America, and then of course Action for Canada right now is representing, our country on the world stage. So in the end of September, beginning of October, myself and Kim are heading to Washington, D.C. because the World Health Organization is meeting there. I believe it's on the health treaties. And so this whole team from across the globe are going to meet in Washington, and we're going to send the WHO a clear message that we're not putting up with this, and that the comprehensive sexuality education needs to be completely dismantled. It needs to be removed from the education system along with sexual education, period. It should not be in the school systems. The foundation of sexual education was created by Alfred Kinsey, who was a pedophile, and then he created research that people thought, was trustworthy, and he used pedophiles to abuse children. And like I say, this is where sexual education was born, and this is why it needs to be completely eradicated from the school system. And we need to go back to teaching biology based on science and facts. Like that, there's only two sexes, male and female. And, the world wouldn't exist if it were not for that incredible, precious union made by God. And of course, that's what the attack is all about, right? This is a massive spiritual attack that if they can attack the womb, if they can sterilize our children, well, there's their population control. One of the many systems that they're using in order to do that. So if you could help support Action for Canada, it costs money to go down and make a trip like this. And so I personally will be there from September 29th to October. I'll be returning on October 9th because of several events that I will be attending while I'm there. So we would appreciate your financial support to help our team. All right. So again, since it's been 2 years, we have come such a long way. We know that in the United States, they are overturning and banning the medical mutilation of children. They're prohibiting that and that, I think that's an order that Trump has made nationwide. They're removing biological men from prisons and women's sports. They are completely removing this SOGI education from the education system. It has just been one win after the other since Trump got in. And the beautiful part is we're starting to win in Canada as well, even though the regime change from Justin Trudeau to Mark Carney, I'm sorry, but I just can't call him our prime minister because I just don't trust that the election process was honest. He's never been an elected official before, but that is one of the reasons why, as well, we don't have the type of support to overturn these egregious acts and these criminal acts against our children. Mutilating children is just a whole different level of evil. And people don't understand. This is not about love. It's not about acceptance or tolerance. This is an agenda to change societal norms, and they're using our children. And through this video tonight, you are going to see how they're doing it from kindergarten to grade 6. It's diabolical. So the massive wins, just a reminder, since this video took place, was the win in Saskatchewan, where we got SOGI prohibited from being implemented in their education system. The recent win in Calgary, in Edmonton, where they're removing the books. But I want to let you know, our job in Alberta isn't done. We sent this action out only to our Alberta members, but I'm bringing this up because I want our members, our viewers, to know how much work Action for Canada is doing in the background to keep the momentum going in overturning this. We need your support. If you can't support us financially, what we're asking is that you simply take 5 minutes to do the call to action campaigns. Again, I'm going to actually include this further action in the email that I'm preparing to go out for next week's show. It will be in the body of the email, so be sure to scroll down, or you can go under call to action to urgent actions, and you can pull up this action there and participate in it. But we always provide a little bit of context. What's this action about? And then we provide craft a letter that you can simply highlight, copy, paste, throw into your email, then copy the emails that we've provided and send it off. And then the government is hearing from the citizens, because right now and for decades, the radical activists have been working very busy in the background lobbying government. And so we're doing all the hard work here, but we need you to support us in these actions by taking 5 minutes to actually take part in them. Okay, the other one is the back to school campaign that's coming up. This is our third annual campaign that we're asking fathers, men, uncles, whoever the significant man is in a child's life, to bring that child to school in the first week, to serve a notice of liability to the teacher and the principal, which highlights that what they're doing in sexualizing children is criminal and that we're not going to tolerate it, and it could open them up to liability. Also, click on the letter. You can give that as well to the principal and to the teacher and say, you know what? These public spaces need to be neutral. I don't want to see any little LGBTQ political flags in the classroom or in the hallways or any of the propaganda, right? We need a nation rising up together, uniting in one voice to make this happen. And Action for Canada is providing you all the resources, the campaigns, the strategy to do that. But it's no good, right? If hundreds of thousands or millions of Canadians don't actually get involved, don't leave it to other people. We need you on the front lines in this way with us. Now, included in this page is a flyer. This is the poster that you could also put up at your church or at a community center, anywhere. Just let's get people aware and involved. And the flyer that we've made available as well, this one is for BC and Alberta and any province that has, like in Alberta and BC is where they have SOGI 1, 2, 3 officially. In Ontario, it is the Win Sex Ed. And in other provinces that don't have a specific label for the sexualization program that's in your schools and in your curriculum, then just use the SOGI one. Just use the BC flyer. And I call it a truth bomb. I have a lady right now in Vancouver, just bless her heart. She's older and she says, Tanya, I really want to hand out flyers for Action for Canada. And so I've gone ahead and ordered 500 of the SOGI flyers and 500 of the 15-minute city flyers. And she's in a week, she's already gone through them. She's saying, you know what, I'd like to order more flyers. And so Action for Canada, of course, can't cover the cost of everybody across Canada doing this. And so help fund it. Help fund Action for Canada. Get involved in a chapter within your community. Donate to that chapter so that they can order the flyers and get busy, because this is the truth bomb throughout September. We do it all year round, but especially we push for it in September, where we have groups of people, parents, citizens going outside of schools and handing these to parents so they can say, hey, do you know what actually is being taught in the schools? And they're so busy dropping their kids off and maybe going to working 2 jobs, who knows, to make ends meet, that they have no idea until it's too late. Grade 6, grade 7, when their kids are indoctrinated and then coming home and saying, hey, mom, guess what? I was born your little girl, but I now identify as a boy. And it is a mass social contagion happening in Canada and around the world. So please help us out, get involved. And then another thing we've been doing all summer long is a real push that anybody that can pull your kids out, homeschool. Take your kids out, go to current issues, scroll down, you'll see our homeschooling page. We call it the Homeschool Revolution. There's all the information here that you need to get started to facilitate you. And we love it. We love your kids. We love Canada, and we really want to see this turned around. Okay, so thank you for listening to the updates. Now we're going to go into the show we created. Thank you, Jenny. I know she's here. She created this awesome image that shows the kids are so depressed across Canada. They are anxious. They are not learning. Well, next week, I'll say it at the end of the show as well, but we have Doris, our homeschool lead, coming on with Peter Peter Stock, and he is from HSLDA, and we're going to be talking about some of the stats. It is incredible statistically how the provinces, how the education system is failing our students in the public education system. I mean, we're talking about 67% in mathematics and maybe 71% in reading, depending what province and where you are. But it's a sad state. How are our kids going to function when they graduate and be able to support a family? And of course, that's what the government is working towards, right? A socialist state where everybody is getting their small stipend from the government and living under their authority. So I'll stop sharing screen now and we shall start the program. It's going to be about an hour long. It's actually an hour and a half. When you see the Rumble video, we'll be posting it in the upcoming Action. If you haven't joined Action for Canada, make sure you do so you get our emails. But I feel I just want to cover the most important part of the actual content of the SOGI resource. And then at your own leisure, if you want to watch the video, because there was some really great questions in the Q&A that took place. All right, enjoy the show. Thanks. I've been talking for a little while about the SOGI resources that we have come across. And after a while, I have found some of these resources on the actual page, but you had to do some digging to get there. Where I originally got it was from a whistleblower in the School District 2023, which is in Kelowna, BC, and it's called the SOGI Toolkit. And I was horrified to see, but happy to see the evidence showing that they are indeed indoctrinating and grooming and exploiting our children. So I'm just going to share my screen, Terenzio. How is that looking? We're good to go. All right. All right. Thanks, Terenzio. I am going to start with a little bit of history. It's going to be a little different in every single province, a little different, but the same. So every single province ended up amending the Human Rights Code to include gender identity and expression as a protected class. So rather than do every single province, I'm just going to focus on British Columbia for a while, because this is where SOGI has originated. And I just have to emphasize again that SOGI, the WIN Sex Ed, Back to Basics in Nova Scotia is all comprehensive sexuality education, which has been funneled down from the UN for all member nations to implement. And it is to sexualize children at the earliest age possible. So in July of 2016, Christy Clark, this lady right here, was the Premier of British Columbia, and she showed up with over 80 sex activists to actually table and pass the amendment to the Human Rights Code. It actually went through first, second, and third reading all in one day. And you'll see that they're all proudly standing there. These are men dressed as women here and here and here. I'm not sure. This is the Attorney General, Minister of Justice. Years later, when she saw that this amendment was being used in nefarious ways to support, there was a trans person who was trying to get women in BC to wax his private parts, and they of course were denying him service, and so he thought that he would drag them before the Human Rights Code. And she said, well, this wasn't what it was intended to be. She thought she was doing a good thing. I think it would take any reasonable person to think that you don't support people's mental illness or delusions. But it got passed on purpose there, with these individuals very proudly supporting it. We're going to talk about the trans flag a little bit later as I get into the show, and really understanding who the people were before that. Again, did they do any research to understand what they were actually supporting? So in the amendment to the Human Rights Code, we have it as Bill C-16 at the federal code. It was included in the criminal code. And they ended up, here it is, sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression. All of this is based on ideologies. I'm going to keep repeating that. This is, not something that I believe should be in the Human Rights Code. And it has definitely caused dueling human rights. And so I say where there's a duel, there's a fight, and I have highlighted religion here, which has been, of course, since the beginning of time, has been part of the Human Rights Code, that you have the freedom of religion. It's in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and that was based on Christianity when all of this was formed. And now what we've got, as I said, dueling human rights, and we're in a fight. They wanted a fight, they brought it on, we got to win. And it is not about hate. It's not about racism. This is a matter of they are not respecting anybody else's human rights if it relates to religious belief, personal belief, ethics, morality. They are railroading over everybody's rights, and I have a problem with that. The only good thing that Pierre Elliott Trudeau said was that the government had no business in the bedrooms of the citizens, and I can tell you that the sex activists have no business in the classrooms of and in the education system. You get out and we'll have no problem. You leave our kids alone, we'll have no problem. Okay, so that was in July of 2016. And then what happened right away, you could see they had this all planned, is in September of 2016, they launched SOGI into 9 pilot schools in British Columbia. And in the beginning of 2017, the ARC Foundation, along with the Minister of Education, who was Glenn Hansman at that time, a homosexual, there he is right there, helped to develop the SOGI 123. The BC government paid the ARC Foundation $100,000. And next thing you know, there it was implemented. You keep an eye, this gentleman has caused a lot of harm. He has also been responsible for railroading over other people's human rights. Barry Neufeld is one of those individuals. Barry Neufeld in 2017 took a look at SOGI, as we are going to do tonight, and he said, you know what? He's had a lot of, experience with groomers and individuals, and he says, this looks a lot like grooming children. So BCTF, he's no longer the president of the BCTF, but he's obviously still involved with the ARC Foundation. They have smeared his name. They've dragged his name through the mud. They dragged him through court. They've, as far as I'm concerned, they've cheated in the court as far as representing Glenn Hansman, and they're going after the little guy. And it's caused Barry Neufeld hundreds of thousands of dollars to take this on for all parents in Canada and their children. So we need to support Barry Neufeld further. Okay, so we'll move along. This was the new Minister of Education in BC, Rashna Singh. And I don't know, this is the most ridiculous person I've ever heard in the House. One of the MLAs who's just stepped away into the Conservative Party, forgive me, I can't remember his name right now. He was reading one of the books in the legislature, and they shut him down because it was so disgusting what he was saying. And Rashna Singh couldn't even put 2 sentences together to respond to this. And she definitely didn't turn around and say, yes, these books are pornographic. We should have no part of this. Instead, she talks about when students can see themselves reflected in the world around them through stories. Oh, the stories that are in our schools, the books. Stories of same-gender parents or math problems. Can you imagine that, incorporating all of this into math? Let's show you. I'm going to show you what's happening with math. Okay, so stories of same-gender parent or math problems that use they, them pronouns in a school environment. I frankly don't understand this sentence. I don't know how math or they, them has anything to do with it. But boy, oh boy, when you see the SOGI toolkit, you will. What's it say about math in Canada? Canadian schools are failing on math instruction. And multiple times I've shown you in Ontario, grade 9, 56% standard of math. Like, these kids are failing miserably. How are they going to run this country? They're not. The Chinese are, and that's not a racist comment. The Chinese don't have trans kids in China, all right? They are training their kids up in reading, writing, and arithmetic. And I tell you, they know the history of China. Do our children know? They don't even know what gender they are or what bathroom they go into because of what Ms. Reshna and Mr. Hansman are doing to our children, and Mr. Ebby. Okay, here is Glenn Hansman again. This is 2016. All right, this is how long this has been going on. In 2016, the BCTF was active in the lobby that succeeded in getting the BC Human Rights Code updated to include gender identity and expression, and we are now working to support implementation into the public sector. It's not just good enough that they've overtaken the schools. It does say including schools, but the public sector. So unless businesses are going to support them, there's going to be shame, there's going to be attacks. They're saying don't give them your business. And look at this. Existing BCTF policies and procedures have been updated to guide our actions forward on equity, diversity, and inclusion. And of course, you're hearing a lot about that coming from the UN as well, and the ESG scores. And what businesses, again, are expected, equity, diversity, inclusions, means that you no longer hire somebody based on whether they are the right person for the job. You base on their sexual diversity or gender identity or whether they're handicapped. I feel that's insulting to anybody. Why would you even want to take a job, as a default? That's very weak. We want people, we don't want victims, we want them to excel. But the BCTF and the Canadian government and the provincial governments like to victimize these people because they're easiest to control, and then they can advance their agenda. I'm going to fight for the underdog. I'm going to fight for the victims who are these kids that are being lured into this program. Okay, so after that all happened, in July of 2017, there was a legislative order passed in British Columbia. And look at this. Look what it says. It says the Ministry of Education and Childcare no longer conducts evaluation processes to recommend learning resources. No, now the responsibility now rests with the boards, with the school boards. So in British Columbia, SOGI 123 is not a curriculum. It is a learning resource that has been embedded into all subjects, which means that the boards have the power to remove them because they are responsible for learning resources. So remember that when you're serving our notices of liability to the boards, remember that this personal liability is going to hit home pretty soon. Because in California, armpit of the United States on this subject, the most woke state other than, New York, in all of the United States, there was a lady who ended up suing the school board because they were transitioning. The school was transitioning her child, and she won $150,000 was paid out to her. And so the school boards are setting themselves up here, and that's why it's important for failure. They're setting themselves up for failure. And that's why it's very important all of you get actively involved serving the notices of liability, because we don't know what judge is going to be the one with the greatest backbone in Canada to start helping us out. But it's going to start happening in Canada as well. We have 4 provinces that are now passing legislation on behalf of parental rights and to protect our children. And it's only a matter of time before judges start to see they're on the winning side by overturning all of this. Okay, so on the SOGI 123 website, everyone has a sexual orientation and gender identity. Scientifically, yes, male and female. That's it. Not 150 or 300 or 1,000 pronouns, not self-identification, not being true to their true selves, 2 genders, male and female. So I'm going to get that clear right away. Then if you go down the page, it talks about collaborators. So I was interested, who's collaborating with them? And then you come down to this page and you still have to keep searching a little bit. So let's meet our supporters, our collaborators. It goes back to the ARC Foundation. So here on the left, we see provincial education partners, all of the unions, of course, BT Teachers Association, CUPE. Really? Weren't the unions all previously, didn't this all come together to make sure that employees had good wages? When did they become the social justice warriors of the world? Well, one of them is out on screen. So I thought, okay, who's out on screen? I came to the Out on Screen and I see Death Becomes Her Halloween fundraiser and all of these Vancouver queer film festivals, Becoming Queer Joy. There's the queer film festivals where children at school, if they, within this community, if they create videos that are really great, they get to go to the queer film festival and have themselves highlighted. And if you go to Out in Schools, let me see where I click next. Okay, Out on Screens connected with Out in Schools. It was one more click, and all of a sudden, within 3 clicks, I ended up on this page. And there's multiple videos of hardcore gay porn. And numerous times, they're all saying about these wonderful Out on Screens and Out in Schools and all these LGBTQ NGO groups, non-governmental groups, but they're highly paid by the federal government and funded. And these individuals are coming into your schools and meeting with the ministers of education, and they are moving along what it is without any parents knowing, creating committees within the school districts of radical activists who are effectively making change within the schools. Now, you think you're sending your child to school to learn reading, writing, and arithmetic, that it's a curriculum that's been approved by the government, but it's not so. There is educational policies that are being affected within.
In times of financial uncertainty, securing your wealth is more important than ever. With inflation, market instability, and economic challenges, many Canadians are turning to one timeless strategy: precious metals. Gold and silver have historically retained their value, offering a hedge against economic turmoil and a safeguard for your assets. If you're looking to invest, there's good news for members of Action for Canada. We're proud to announce our partnership with Steve Merrill of Sun City Silver. Steve is not only a friend of the Freedom Movement, but he's also offering Action for Canada members exclusive access to some of the best pricing in Canada. Thanks to his extensive client base and affiliation with Silver Gold Bull, you can now secure your precious metals at incredible rates. Silver Gold Bull is a trusted Canadian leader with live pricing available 24/7 and nearly 400,000 five-star reviews on Trustpilot. When you purchase through Steve, you're not only investing in your future, you're also supporting the Freedom Movement, as a percentage of each sale helps support Action for Canada. Plus, there's a bonus. If you place an order of $5,000 or more, you'll receive a 1-ounce pure silver bullet, a unique and valuable addition to your collection. And if you refer someone who places a $5,000 order, you'll get another silver bullet as a thank you. To get started, visit actionforcanada.com/purchasing-precious-metals/. Remember, your decisions are your own, and we recommend doing your own research before making any investment. But with Steve Merrill's guidance and our partnership, you'll be on the right path to securing your future. Secure your assets, protect your future, support the movement. Visit us today to learn more.
Okay, so back to a SOGI 1, 2, 3. Creating SOGI inclusive education is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1 is policies and procedures. 2, inclusive environments. And then teaching resources. Well, I click on things and I couldn't find the teaching resources. They say everything's available to us, but I kept finding it was difficult. So accessible resources, I started going into essential learning and it brought me back up here. Well, that's interesting. So BC Educator website, what's happening in British Columbia, and then started scrolling down. And again, I couldn't easily find the teaching resources that were made available to our children. So I kept looking. I did come across that there's SOGI leads in the school. SOGI leads can be teachers, administrators, librarians. I've heard that they can be janitors, counselors, and any other staff role in a school. So anybody can have access to your child and keep secrets with them and make sure that the parents are on the outside to push this agenda. Now, let's see why that's important when you see how vulnerable kids are in what the school is teaching them. But here's one more screen. SOGI teams and committees. This one, it just kills me. In order to have overall support and buy-in, look at the language that they're using. Why would you need to have people have buy-in? If this was a really program for our kids, why do you have to have so much influence? Why is there so much sneakiness going on in the background? SOGI inclusive education must be collaborative, embraced by many people, and there must be support and resources for both direction setting and putting that direction into action. When SOGI teams and committees are referenced in this guide, the definitions of these two groups are, but I thought this was interesting, these committees I was talking about, well, they talk about the SOGI leads and teams are made up of more than, I'm going to make that a little bit larger. Okay, SOGI lead that are working together to further the progress of SOGI inclusive education. Here it talks about these committees, and this is very concerning. Schools and districts may have informal working groups, advisory committees, official committees, or standing committees. So these informal working groups, advisory committees, are LGBTQ activists from these NGO groups who they're the ones that would vote to have drag queens. They'd be pushing for drag queens to come into the schools. They would be pushing for all things pride throughout the school year. They create those calendars that none of you know about or who can easily find. You'll see the school calendar celebrating Remembrance Day and Christmas and Family Day and Easter, but you will not find the calendars that have all of the deviant, sexual, adult fetishes and proclivities that are on calendar school schedule throughout the year. Okay, we've seen some of those. We've seen the one that they quickly took down, for instance, in Prince George, BC, and I've seen them come from other parents. Very scary stuff, what our kids are being exposed to. So it's these secret committees. A committee will have an explicit mandate, for example, to support the creation of implementation of the policy. That could be the Pride Month celebrations and the celebrations of the balloons and who is going to have the displays ready for the kids and who's going to hand out the flags and the rainbow song, who's going to invite the drag queen, how they're going to have all the children come together in the gymnasium to celebrate all of this through Pride Month, etc. You have no idea what's being passed and done in these committees. And it says, and may have requirements about which stakeholders must be present. I wonder if I'd be permitted to be a stakeholder, to be part of this committee, or would I be discriminated against? I think I'd be discriminated against. Okay, again, SOGI Inclusive Education Resource Guide. BC K-12 SOGI Collaborative prioritized the development of the resource guide to support SOGI leads who also contributed and provided substantial input. Did the parents get to provide substantial input into the education system, into the policies and guidelines? I don't think so. So I'm still searching. Thank goodness for, the whistleblower that initially sent me the toolkit. It helped get me started. But here's another thing on the BC website. You'll find them on your own provincial websites. This is from 2017. It says 19% of BC high school students identify as gay, lesbian, bisexual, or not exclusively heterosexual. Prior to all of this, and you got to remember, this has been going around for 30 years. They've been implementing the books into the education system. The language has been about the inclusive diversity. LGBTQ has been pushed by these committees, by these communities that have been, very nefarious, kind of slipping in like slippery snakes into our child's education. It used to be 0.001% of the population of kids in school were gay or lesbian, and none of them, zero trans kids. There's no such thing as a trans child, right? This is something that's been created from the ARC Foundation. They've got a guy named, what's his name? Sorry, I'm not seeing it right here right away. Anyway, a spokesperson was answering questions. And one of the questions, is it used to encourage gender dysphoria? They say, we believe claims of gender dysphoria are increasing because more people are choosing not to hide their real identities their entire lives. The point of SOGI 123 is to create safer and more inclusive environments for students of all sexual orientations and gender identities. So when you see the toolkit, you will understand why they absolutely 100% have manifested and created gender dysphoria, and they are implementing this into the school systems, and they are indoctrinating children to go down this path. A recent report has shown that 32% of grade 7 and 8 students are identifying as LGBTQ. This is not just because they're comfortable to feel their real selves. All right. Again, on the government's website, our team was looking up grooming, happens to be online dangers. Grooming is when someone builds trust with a child and sometimes the adults around them to gain access to and control the child by normalizing certain behaviors and expectations. This sounds a lot like SOGI 123, but let's delve into one more report before we get into the actual SOGI 123 resources. This is a report that's called Re-examining the Evidence for Comprehensive Sexual Education in Schools. This is a PDF from 2019. Sheila on our team, she's an amazing researcher. She found it. So let's first see what they say about comprehensive sexuality education. Program success versus failure. Only 20 of the 40 programs actually measured the more rigorous definition of effectiveness. Example, protective impact on a key indicator at least 12 months post-program for the intended population without other negative effects. And only 3 met that standard. None of the 3 studies were by independent evaluators, and 2 of them used the weaker outcome measures of more frequent or at last intercourse condom use. This was a success ratio of 15%, 3 out of 20, or inversely 85% of the CSE programs in US schools that measured real effectiveness failed to demonstrate it. Harmful program impact. 7 studies reported 10 findings of harmful impact on the main intended population or a substantial subgroup produced by 6 school-based CSE programs, 3 increased rates of recent sex, 1 increased sexual initiation, 2 increased oral sex, 1 increased teen pregnancy, 1 increased number of sex partners, and 2 reduced condom contraceptive use. This was 12%, 7 out of 60 of the studies, or 15% of the 40 school-based CSE programs that showed harmful effects, which are higher rates than would be expected. So what it is saying is that there is a high rate, a very high rate of harm due to the CSE. This is an actual study, a report that has been done. I'm just going to try to find the other page. I believe, page am I on? Page 13. Yeah, sorry, bear with me for a moment. In the conclusion, when measured by credible criteria derived from the field of prevention research, a database containing 103 of the strongest and most recent CSE studies vetted for research quality by 3 reputed scientific agencies, UNESCO, CDC, and HHS, showed little evidence of CSE effectiveness in schools settings and a concerning number of negative effects. Let that sink in. UNESCO, the UN, the CDC, HHS in the US, all have said a concerning number of negative effects. Where there was some positive evidence, nearly all of it was produced by the programs developers and had not been replicated. And here in the end, when applying the same standards of effectiveness to AE, which is abstinence in US schools, the evidence, though limited, was more independent and looked more promising enough to justify funding additional abstinent research and the courses. And of course, that's what we've been saying. And Audrey Werner was on. Phil Leese has said that abstinence promotes the best response with our youth and is the most healthy and has the best results. And so that's what Action for Canada is back to, promoting the good old-fashioned abstinence, because it is in the best interest of our schools and to wipe all of this sexual deviance out of the school. All right, so what I'm going to delve into now is the SOGI toolkit. In the onset, it says SOGI 123 is not a curriculum, which is correct. It's a set of learning resources according to the SOGIeducation.com website. The BC public policy regarding learning resources, I already mentioned that, stating that school boards are responsible for them. SOGI 123 sexualizes children. According to the Criminal Code of Canada, it's unlawful to sexualize children. The American Psychological Association defines sexuality as, I'm going to go to number 2, all aspects of sexual behavior, including gender identity, orientation. Okay, so just keep that highlighted in your mind. Gender identity and orientation is sexualization of children. Sexualization, in the definition in the dictionary, the act of endowing with sexual characteristics or of excessively emphasizing those characteristics. You are going to see gender identity and sexual orientation excessively emphasized throughout SOGI 123 learning resources. Indoctrination, the process of repeating an idea or belief to someone until they accept it without criticism or question. Isn't that what they're trying to force society to do? A lot of you will be fearful of being criticized if you don't go along. I just on the other night found out from a mom whose daughter is going to the UBC University in British Columbia here, and they were sent a survey, the students, and the survey asked the question, one, it was saying that they were going to increase tuition by 4%, and that the 4% was going to be given to individuals, LGBTQ, to go and have their bodies medically mutilated. At this point, every single provincial government is paying for the medical mutilation of individuals, for girls to have their breasts removed, for males to have their penises chopped off, for girls to have, their arm, a chunk of their tendon in their arm taken off and made a fake penis of. This is all being paid for you by the taxpayer. Now they're wanting our students to pay for it, as if, that this is, and ask the question, do you support LGBTQ? I'd outright no. But you know what? The parents are too afraid to go to the meeting. The students are terrified to say and give their real opinion for fear of being called a racist or a bigot or a homophobe. All right? We're the adults. We need to get on the front line of this and say, this is insane, it's demonic, and it needs to stop. So grooming, I just mentioned from the government website, is when it says someone builds trust with a child to gain access to and control the child by normalizing certain behaviors and expectations. What are they trying to normalize? Adult sexual proclivities. They make promises of a better life, which they tell kids, if you just transition, you'll be so much happier, you're born in the wrong body. Cause division, saying your parents are too strict or your parents don't understand you. You'll see how they create advocates. 100%. The government's own website is saying that SOGI is grooming our children. Normalize sexual behaviors by showing the child sexual images or videos. Remember, I was banned from the Mission School District because I showed the books, the sexual books, on our PDF, and the headline in the newspaper the next day was that I was banned for showing graphic information. All right, I've taken this report. I hope all of you received it this week. If you haven't joined Action for Canada, make sure you do that so that you'll receive our weekly updates and notifications. And in green, I've made some green comments so that if you're reading it on your own, you can recognize what is grooming, exploitation, indoctrination. So I hope you don't mind, but I spent the first half of this show wanting you to understand the history of how we came here, how they're selling it as an anti-bullying program, and how it's about all students, etc. Okay, so what do they start off saying? They start off saying that publicly they claim that SOGI 123 is for everyone. But here they specifically say the goal is to provide curriculum focused learning that is centered around issues facing members of the 2S LGBT community. Well, I thought it was for all students. And you know what's happening to students that don't agree with this, or parents? They are being persecuted. They are being discriminated against. They are being hated on. And so it's right here. They are sneaky liars. They are dishonest, and they need to be called out. And that's what we're doing tonight. And it's anchored in text from each school's SOGI toolkit. And every school has to create a SOGI policy. So you can bet, don't think, that your child is safe in the school. As Alex Newman repeatedly says, if you saw the school actually burning physically on fire, would you send your child in there? Right? The answer would be a hard no. And these schools are on fire. Okay, why is SOGI important? Every subject and grade level reflect a core competency of understanding and uplifting diversity. Why? These are prepubescent children that aren't looking at you, whether you're gay or lesbian. Get over yourself. You are there to teach our children reading, writing, and arithmetic. None of this nonsense should be within our schools. We should also be forming our classroom environments to reflect the diverse gender identities and sexualities. Well, what does it say up above in the definition of grooming and the definition of sexuality, gender identity, and orientation? So keep those things in mind as we go through this. 2S LGBTQ youth are 7 times more likely than their heterosexual counterparts to attempt suicide. If we were to go back 20 years, that would be 0.001% of the population. It's a very small percentage of the population. And these children had underlying issues where they needed counseling. But now the government is prohibiting counseling, even though they're indoctrinating this and creating a mass social contagion. We'll get to that in a little bit. The truth of the matter is that when kids transition, and kids that go down this path have a 19 times higher suicide rate than controls overall, and 40 times higher for female to male individuals. And of course, the girls are being hit the hardest through this. They're the ones coming home on the highest rate, and so saying that they're no longer a girl, they're a boy. A 2019 report showed a 4,500% increase in girls that now identify as male. And so you can imagine after 4 more years of this indoctrination, it must be at 10,000%. Because you see 32% rate, of kids, and I don't even think that's the true figures with all of the parents that come up to me and let me know about what's going on. The same parent that was involved with the university student has her son last year in grade 10 with a trans activist in the class, LGBTQ activist, who used their trusted position to force the children to watch a drag queen video. And the child said, I am not comfortable with this. I want to be absent. And what if I was sick? She said, he, she, or whoever it was, the teacher was, said, then you will fail. This is extortion. This is intimidation. This is happening to 15-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 4-year-olds. It is got to stop, and we've got to rise up ferociously in defense of our children. I know moms whose daughters have been lured into this and have committed suicide. Don't talk to me about the 7% and base all of your argument on that. Who is SOGI for? It says SOGI is every student, teacher, faculty, and administrator. Again, why? Why is SOGI for the teachers and administrators? Kids in elementary school have no idea of your sexual adult proclivities or fetishes. You need to keep it out of the school system. Again, it talks about the 19% high school students, and we've compared that to hard numbers at 32%. Policies, inclusive policies and procedures that reference SOGI have been proven to reduce discrimination, suicide ideation, and suicide attempts. Wrong. This is false information. Inclusive environments, inclusive operations, language, and practices embedded into our classrooms. Hear that word, embedded. I say that this is indoctrination. SOGI is not its own curriculum. We've talked about that. SOGI is a learning resource, and we're going to skip down. Children are too young. So addressing concerns. Children are too young to be exposed to this subject. And they say, oh, no, No one is too young to learn about love and respect for diverse individuals and families in our school community. Pedophilia is behind this agenda, as I've shown you on our political LGBTQ site on the website, when we've looked at the WHO's new sexuality policies, right? 0 to 4, teach children about masturbation, right? Sexualize them. And of course, the whole direction that this is going is pedophilia, because they're advocating for children to be able to love whoever they want to love. Well, that's when they've been indoctrinated and groomed to have that very unhealthy pedophilic relationship with an adult who's been grooming them. And that's why in Saskatchewan, Scott Moe has come so hard down on the policies, but the LGBTQ and EGAL have come out and said that they didn't want parental policies. They said that this was in violation of a child's charter rights. All right? A child doesn't have the same charter rights because they're under the care of their parents. That's why they can't smoke drugs. That's why they can't go out and buy alcohol or have sex with prostitutes or, get a driver's license. They're under the care of the parents, and it's obvious why parents need to maintain that control because of these individuals that are saying no one is too young to learn about love and respect. There is something underlying amongst this message. Children are not sexual, and therefore they should not be exposed to this ideology. There are only two genders, male and female, and therefore boys and girls should only be encouraged to embrace their sex at birth, because somewhere in here they talk about according to the experts, between the ages of 2 and 3, children begin to express their gender identity. And what this is based on is Kinsey, Alfred Kinsey, who was a horrible pedophile. Audrey Werner, we had her on the show, and she gave the history of where sexual health came into the education system. And they keep wanting to say sexual orientation, SOGI, is not sexual health. Then why do they keep talking about sexuality to children? Why is this not private and being done in sexual health classes? Well, because the underlying here is to sexualize children at the earliest age possible. And that's why they're talking about 2 and 3-year-olds being able to express gender identity, because Kinsey was experimenting on babies and young children to the point that is so horrific and abusive, and he was using pedophiles to do it. And out of his tremendous research, he determined that kids were sexual at birth. And this is what is behind this agenda. And this is why we have to even remove sexual health from the education system. Okay, I don't know what just happened there, but I lost my page. There we go. Sorry about that. I've just got to scroll down again. All right. SOGI 123 does not encourage the adoption of an 2S LGBTQ identity. It merely elevates representation of these individuals while simultaneously building empathy. Okay, so in 2023, I've mentioned the number of kids has risen to 32%. You're going to see that they are 100% in affecting children and planting these seeds that grow throughout kindergarten to grade 1. It's never controversial to talk about the identities of the student in your classroom and school. Well, then tell me, pray tell, why is there parents rising up en masse all over the world and around the world against SOGI 123 and the sexualization of our children? They absolutely know that this is a very controversial issue, and that's why school boards are also blocking parents, because they have infiltrated our school boards, and that's why we need to get also involved in elections. Many of Action for Canada's chapter leaders got elected last year as school board trustees in those provincial elections. So we encourage you, think about it, and keep getting educated so that you can run for those positions. All right, the lesson, and then we go into KN1 and this physical health education. It's no longer PE, physical education, and it's not health education, it's physical health education. So they're incrementally implanting here sexual health into physical health education. It already talks about same-sex families to kindergartners, right? My daughter was so excited to see that the teacher had a bunny rabbit in the class and frogs, and that she could be part of, feeding the frogs and the bunny rabbits. And on a weekend, we took the bunny rabbit home. She is not thinking about someone's sexual preference. So they're starting really young. Ask students who's in a family, record their ideas on chart paper along with key words and picture symbols so that non-readers can tell who is who. Kindergartners, right? Be careful not to draw girls and boys in gender stereotypical ways. Stick figures with skirts or pants. Don't use that, right? That's taboo. Or using gendered colors, pink and blue. Excuse me? Excuse me? You're going to confuse children that early because you have adult sexual proclivities or maybe some unresolved childhood issues that you think that children who never even would go down this path would even think about this? You want to affect our kids? Prior to reading about diverse families, ask students to listen and watch for the different kinds of families they see within the book. This is indoctrinating and exploiting children's innocence. Parents would have no idea that this is going on. They'd have no idea because you can't find this resource anywhere easily. Recommended books, all LGBTQ books. I thought they said that this was about all kids. It's exclusively LGBTQ. All right, here again, gay and lesbian, two dads, two moms. Would you want your children as a heterosexual Christian family, just any family, would you be wanting this planted in your kids' minds? This is beyond. You've just sent them there again to read and write. When you mention gay and lesbian parented families, some children may giggle. Take this teachable moment to let students know that these are the proper words to describe people who fall in love with someone of the same gender. Again, this is kindergarten. And then they talk about gay and lesbian as being the proper words of two women who fall in love. It's not okay to use these words in a mean way or tease anyone. Use repetition in this point to indoctrinate children and the normalization. Because it goes, on another day, you may wish to read a second family diversity story. You see how I mean? They're hitting the kids with it every single day, every single week. This is what's being implemented. There are some teachers, thank God, who are refusing to teach any of this, but we have enough of them that are doing this. We have enough activists in the school that are taking it upon themselves. All right. Ask students individually to point to different kinds of families. Can you point to the family with two moms? Again, resources, family about diversity. That's a family, stretches the minds and touches the hearts. They talk about divorce, mixed race, gay and lesbian, kindergarten and grade 1. I'm sorry, but I think this is inappropriate. We're going to skip down. We'll move fairly quickly. After reading, add additional ideas to the chart from the story based upon students' responses. Gee, if you have an activist, I wonder what those additional ideas will be. Stella has two dads. When mommy and mama get married, board book showing loving family activities in a two-dad family, two-mom family, 100% indoctrination, hyper-focused on the kids learning about these kind of proclivities. Use personal experiences. This one really got me. I'm like, excuse me? You know what happened to Sarah, the girl I had on my show at 14? A trans activist came in and said, if you're struggling with the body that you're in, you're gender dysphoric. That's a reckless comment. We can agree to make to a 14-year-old girl who is going through the changes of life and developing, or a boy, right? Use personal experience to connect the stories and other texts to the meaning. Okay, to question gender identity. A person's appearance can change. Here we're getting into it, okay? Kindergarten, grade 1. A person's appearance can change. Why are you talking to a child about that? Why would they need to know this? Sometimes the change is subtle or superficial. Sometimes the change is more profound. Introducing gender fluid. All right, sorry, I'm just taking a pause. We're serving notices. Okay, so Sheila, remind me at the end, I will have a time of Q&A as well. I've got probably about 15 minutes left of the presentation. All right, then the next one is, people are entitled to be called by the name they identify with. This is the introduction of LGBTQ allies and interference with parental rights and the pronouns. When people identify the name that they want to be called, it's respectful to use it. And we have grade 4 girls. One mom, there was her daughter was 12 years old. 5 other girls were identifying as boys. And this little club now all picked the cool new boy name they had. They were all getting their hair chopped off. They were all buying whatever jeans and dressing like boys. Do you see where this is going and how it's happening? And they're telling you they're not indoctrinating your children. Then they asked them to brainstorm ways they might notice that I look different. Suggestions that were generated were wearing a hat one day, wearing different shoes, getting a haircut, and goes on about having, hear about a beard, and think about those kids that are thinking of their dad that has a beard one day or a mustache, and then all of a sudden he shaved it off. I remember my dad grew a beard when I was younger because he had chicken pox. And when he came to pick me up at school, I was a little girl and I didn't recognize him because I'd seen him for so long with this beard. All right, this is a totally different scenario, right? They're talking about teaching kids to transition and change from their biological sex into the opposite sex. Steps towards teaching children to identify as the opposite sex. We could just ask what you want us to call you. Kindergarten and grade 1. Excuse me? Are you outraged right now? Some possible reasons why someone might have more than one name. I don't care. Why are you talking to kindergartners about this? Then I shared introducing Teddy. The story presented in introducing Teddy can be deconstructed in a number of levels that vary in sophistication. Depth of engagement will be dependent on the developmental level of students as well as on which topics are most relevant to the social dynamics in the classroom. Social constructs, social engineering of our children. In more advanced classrooms, introducing Teddy and this lesson can be a springboard for conversation about non-binary understandings of gender, deconstructing stereotypical gender ideas. They use animals, penguins, right, to make this whole agenda more acceptable. Can you picture? I'm sorry, every time I go through this, I get so outraged because I read to my kids all the time. And especially my daughter loved animals, penguins, going to the zoo and, everything. We have dogs, we have mice, we've had rabbits, everything in our home. And they're using this to manipulate children and lure them into their web. This programming is creating confusion, anxiety, inner turmoil, depression, and causing children to distrust their own innate instincts and question the values taught to them by their parents. Children are instructed to keep secrets, which creates divided loyalties that isolates them from their family. This is grooming. This is an attack against the natural family to deconstruct societal norms. All right. Okay, K, 1, 2, and 3. Now we're advancing. And so they say keep going over these. Okay, question. I just want to make sure that I'm not missing any notes from my team. Okay. Kindergarten 1, 2, and 3, aka overview of steps of indoctrination. Remember I said, and it's set up above about emphasizing sexuality, repetition is part of it. So through kindergarten, they're introduced. Grade 1, it's repeated. Grade 2, it's repeated. Grade 3, it's repeated, and then it advances. You can see all the key words and the big ideas of this. Everyone has a unique story, the diversity, identity, diverse cultures, form of indoctrinating children through reading strategies to help students share and explore their identities. Again, why? They're male and female. To provide students with an opportunity to share some of their identities with classmates and teachers to explore the concept of gender expression. Now, this one about a book read aloud, there's one, I don't know if red crayon yet. It's natural for young children to notice differences. This lesson offers an opportunity to build classroom community by giving students a choice to share and learn about each other's differences. Each student will create a detailed drawing of themselves after reading the book, Be Who You Are by Todd Parr as a class. And you know that this book is going to lean to a child changing their gender identity. And then what a wonderful opportunity to discuss identity and gender expression with young children. One of the learning objectives of this lesson to teach is to accept and embrace the many ways students may choose to express who they are through clothing and hairstyles. Again, step by step indoctrination. Rainbows, I'm just going to keep going down. Here they say remind students, this can be called gender expression. New Dress is a great book to further explore this concept. Remind students that we cannot assume someone's gender identity. She, he, neither, or both. All right, listen to that, right? Based upon how they look, there are lots of ways to be a girl, boy, both or neither. They're telling us that there isn't a good reason that now kids can be their true selves. It's not because of what they're teaching our children. There is no science to support that there is scientifically somebody can be both or neither. All right, these are psychological issues, and they're being planted in our kids, and you can see why there's a mass contagion. All right. Students can also change their hairstyle that represents their true selves. You can see a lot of the language is building now, their true selves. Where have you ever heard that? How would their parents feel? I think their true selves, when they brought them home from the hospital, was either they brought home a beautiful little boy or a beautiful little girl. While students are sharing their work with each other, are they using vocabulary and showing comprehension of the concept of gender expression? Now, ELA, Social Studies, PHE, there's that again, right? Not PAE, but PHE. Self-identity, planting seeds, self-identifying, mental well-being. And of course, they start talking about mental well-being because this is so psychological. So many parents are saying their kids are more depressed and more anxious than ever before. And younger kids are needing to go onto drugs. By incorporating books with gender diverse characters in the classroom, students will appreciate the gender spectrum, fluidity, and the use of gender pronouns. Remember, I said they were going to be building on, moving kids and implanting these ideas. The gender spectrum is then when they now put a chart up and they have Prince Charming on one side and a princess on the other and say, go and identify where you feel you most belong. And so after the indoctrination, you've got the girls who are now feeling maybe a little bit cool to be part of a club, and they're going to be those boys, right? And the activists in those special committees, the janitor, the administrators, the teachers, the principals, the librarian are going to start targeting those kids. They probably run the Gay Straight Alliance clubs, or now they call them, what was it the lady told me the other day? They're now calling them rainbow clubs. And now they're getting away from all of those names because they're too well identified, and they've got something much more benign now that they're naming the clubs. And so the kids on the PA are being invited that if you are gay, straight, questioning, whatever, come to the clubs at lunch hour or after school. And so here they're talking about gender spectrum, fluidity, and the use of gender pronouns. A rigid gender binary or with the gender they were assigned at birth may feel validated by seeing their lived experience respectfully represented in the classroom. This is lunacy. The ARC Foundation and the individuals within the Minister of Education should be locked up and put in jail. All of the evidence is here showing that they are indoctrinating our children. Lived experience, right? Questioning they're now assigned at birth. I'm outraged. Nothing subtle about the gender spectrum and what they're doing. They're creating a mental, emotional crisis and then providing a solution, self-identification and transitioning, just like they did with Sarah. They got her to question her biological sex at birth because she was having some psychological issues that she needed counseling over. And instead, they fast-tracked her onto drugs. And at 16, the government, you and I, paid to have her breasts removed. And at the age of 20, she, thank God, realized that she'd been duped. But do you know how many kids are committing suicide because of this? You can see it. You can see that this is indoctrination. Now they start with the she and he and they. Step by step, incremental. SOGI teaches children to accept other people's delusions and to reject science and biology. Call a boy, a girl, a he, a she. This is what they're doing now when they get to grade 1, 2, 3, depending, I guess, on how advanced the teacher has the class. Then there's the book about Bailey, whose mom didn't want to call her son a boy, I believe it was, or the backwards way around. And it says, ask what clues tell us that Bailey is a girl. So this is a biological boy, and he came home and told his mom that he wanted to wear a dress and he's a girl. And the mother went, "No, you're not a girl, you're a boy." And so it's like, "No, I'm not." Show students the page, then show and read the sentence and ask what clues tell us that Bailey is a girl. Discuss how pronouns help us to talk without saying a person's name over and over. And so then it goes, when babies are born, doctors and parents usually decide if the baby is a boy or girl. Grade 3. Not everybody will grow up feeling like or identifying as a boy or girl, just like Bailey, right? And just to, how that mom came to accept that her beautiful little boy is actually a girl. This is disgusting. Remember, this is K-3 teaching non-sexual prepubescent children about sexual matters and deceiving them. This is indoctrination. This way, use the transgender to describe them. Sometimes people who feel this way use the word transgender to describe themselves. They're introducing transgenderism to kids in grade 3. Ask students, what does it mean to feel like a boy or feel like a girl? Do people ever feel a bit like both? Indoctrinating. Ask students, how do they think Bailey feels when her mother, father, and or brother call her a boy? What do you think Bailey's family should do? And again, this is creating those allyships that come with the clubs later on as they get into grade 3 and 4. This is what's turning children against their parents in their relationship and the authority in the children's lives, because now they have this allyship at school and the parents don't understand when all of a sudden they come home and say, "I'm a boy." This, again, could be devastating for a child who is being coerced because they're being told to stand up in class and give their pronouns. Student activity, I'm going to start just rushing through this now. Compelled speech. Hand out name pronoun cards. So they're building on this in grade 3. Students who may need more time with the book directly are encouraged to work in smaller groups, right? Because they're not indoctrinated enough. They're not accepting this. So you better continue to repeat it and just tell them to read the book again. And do you remember what the term indoctrination said, right? That you continue to repeat it until there's no argument over it. And that's what this is doing. I'm just going to look at my notes because I just want to scoot down. And I lost them because they fell. Okay. I'm almost finished. I want to get down to gender fluidity. Again, boys and girls do not look or behave. They aren't embracing the new ideology. Stay on them until they do. Emotion. Okay, so here they talk about something I want to warn you about is a term that they call emotional regulation. And emotional regulation is actually, the definition is the ability to exert control over one's own emotional state. However, this lesson plan manipulates children's emotions because they're having them repeat it until they agree with it. Now, I have mentioned previously, way down here on page 25, now it as, okay, so what if your friend, it goes through here, how would your friend feel if you didn't support how they feel on the outside, then the inside? Then they ask the question, how would your friend feel if their parents didn't support how they were on the inside? Now it asks, strangest question if you ask me, what if you felt like an owl inside, but everyone else kept telling you that you were a person? How would you feel? Is this subtly introducing our children to furries? Furries is where mostly men, I understand, probably women as well, but mostly men, it's an adult sexual fetish, very deviant fetish that they're introducing our children to. And you hear about the kitty litter classes. I just met somebody on the island who 100% said absolutely there was a kitty litter in their child's classroom. And kids are identifying as cats or wolves or the rest of it. Okay, again, sexualizing children as they go through the program. I am going to stop sharing this. As you can see, I think we've had enough of it. 100%. They are sexualizing our children. So no, I'll still share screen, please, Terenzio. I'm just going to show people the notice of liability. We've updated it because I spoke to an MLA who was concerned that teachers who are on our side would receive this and think that we were immediately taking legal action against them. The notice of liability is to to warn people what they're doing is either causing harm or unlawful. In this case, you can see it's both. It's causing harm and it's illegal. So we've added a bit of a disclaimer here to let them know the notice of liability is, well, it's also offering them the ability to resist participation by using it as justification to your superiors of your unwillingness to risk personal liability. All right, so that was a lot of heavy stuff. So that originally was aired 2 years ago. And like I say, Action for Canada has been on the front line fighting for our kids nonstop. We are achieving some incredible wins. Our team is amazing. And I just feel like every one of them is called by God by name to be on our team, because it takes a lot to stay in this battle for this period of time, and to just have a resolve to not stop and until we've completely shut this agenda down. I can't imagine, you may be sitting there kind of just shocked, like, are you serious? This is what's going on in our school system. My heart just aches for all the mothers that I've spoken to, for all the children who have gone on the puberty blockers and their little bodies being mutilated. And sometimes it doesn't happen until they're in their 20s, because they've been so indoctrinated into this belief system and they're so psychologically damaged. And by the time they really start to wake up, it's just so much damage has been done. They are just a higher rate of these people are committing suicide. And so it's multi-level attack against our children, and we really need it to stop. So I'm going to share my screen one more time, because I can't emphasize enough how important it is that you join Action for Canada, that you share our material under current issues. I was just going to bring the page up so you can easily find it right here. It says political LGBTQ. This is just one of the really important issues that we're addressing. This is the screen that will come up. This is the video that we were just watching. If you're signed up and you've joined Action for Canada, then you will receive this information in the email that's going to go out Sunday night. This is the SOGI Toolkit resource. Down below, I'm going to bring this video up, but this is the story of Sarah, who had detransitioned. So when parents contact me and saying, my daughter's 14 years old, she's locking herself in her bedroom, she won't speak to me, she's identifying by a male name, she's expecting us to support her, I say, look, before we have a further conversation, please watch the SOGI Toolkit video, understand what they've been doing to your child, and then watch Sarah's testimony, where at the age of 20, she knew something was wrong, and she just was such a brave young woman to get off all of the drugs that they'd put her on, and start doing a deeper dive into what is the true reason why she had gone down this path, and then the grief that she experienced, of course. And so she is reaching out and helping others and providing her testimony. It's just tremendous. So we need to get more of this information out. You can see why Action for Canada is being highly censored. Our emails, your email service providers are censoring Action for Canada. We've been repeatedly asking you to whitelist us. That means make sure that Action for Canada's email, the call2@actionforcanada.com, is actually, you've actually added it to your contact list, because then you will be much more likely to receive our emails. We had 6,400 Shaw members, and we found out that Shaw was holding back our emails from them receiving them. So we dealt with Shaw, and so hopefully if you're a Shaw provider, you're like, might have been a year since you received our email. That's the reason. And now we've discovered as well that Hotmail, Gmail, Outlook, Proton, it's happening throughout. And so the best way that you can help us right now is, one, make sure that you add Action for Canada to your contact list, but also share our material. And we are the only organization nationwide that has this call to action campaign where we're actually asking you, please participate. When we send you an email, take the 5 minutes to highlight and copy the draft letter and put it into your email and send it to the email contacts that we provide for you as well. It couldn't be easier, other than an automated system, but we don't want to move to an automated system, because there are some government programs that once they see these emails coming in with the same subject line, they can stop them and or send them all to a junk folder or just stop them completely. And that's why we need to be really smart, and we need to have so many members that are joining Action for Canada actually do the call to action campaigns. So again, at the beginning of the show, 911 call, homeschool your kids. And if you go scroll down the page, we just try to provide as much amazing information to make it as easy as possible for you to make that transition. Again, international coalition, we're going to be going to Washington, D.C. We need people committed to and financially supporting Action for Canada. The back to school campaign, do you see now why, if you're a parent that literally can't take your children out of school, well, then you need to be actively involved in supporting them. Come on, men, we need you to grab that notice of liability to serve the teacher, and serving teachers that are on our side is a positive thing. That is helpful to them because they can go to their principal, if it's an activist principal, and say, I'm not participating in this. I will not be teaching gender ideology in my class because I've been put on notice that legal action could commence against me, and we will have proof that we serve those teachers and those principals. Again, highlighting why it's so important to get the propaganda out of the schools. No more LGBTQ flags flying. These spaces need to be politically neutral. The action that we're doing in Alberta, I'm just bringing this up to just say this is why we need people financially supporting Action for Canada, because we're on the front lines and we are relentlessly doing actions that we feel are strategically incredibly important in shutting down this cabal, this some people in the chat were calling it demonic attack against our children. It's very evil. It's very evil what's going on, and we need to take this very seriously. So please go to our donate page. There's many ways that you can donate. If you're involved in a chapter, donate cash to the chapter so that they can print these materials and just help in whatever way. If prayer is the only way that you can support us, man, we could not get to where we are without the faithful prayer warriors across Canada holding up Action for Canada and our team. And I thank God every day for that, and for the people that are donating and giving. And we see those larger donations that are coming in, and we appreciate those $10 donations, $20 donations. This is what keeps Action for Canada going. This is what keeps us moving forward with the legal actions as well. Okay, next week, our guest is going to be Peter Stock. As we mentioned, I will stop sharing my screen. And he is with the HSLDA, and Doris will be hosting the show next week. I won't be here, and I just love it because Doris is the head of she's our homeschool lead, and she's just been doing a phenomenal job in previously having guests on and helping homeschoolers and assisting people that are thinking about homeschooling as well. So they're going to cover some very important topics next week. I've created the page today, so that'll be coming out to you soon, and I'm excited about that one. Again, another motivator as to why you should homeschool, and if you're questioning it, if you're considering it, this will be an incredible show for you to watch. The Bible verse for today is such an important one. Proverbs 22:6. It says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. I've got a little baby grandson. He's 1.5 years old now. I got another baby on the way in the next couple of weeks. And when he comes over, I have, there's Christian music on YouTube. That's where I have found it anyways. And it's just the joy of the Lord. And he comes in and now he's starting to dance a little bit. And I thought, what a difference. People could say, oh, you're indoctrinating your kids and this is propaganda. And it's like, no, it's not. It's goodness. It's wholesomeness. It's teaching them how to be kind and how to be grateful and thankful and how to be strong and how to take care of those who are in need. And so I'll stand by biblical standards any day over all of the wretched ideologies that are out there and poisoning the minds and hearts of our kids. So at some point it says, the Bible says, choose this day whom you will serve. As for me and my household, we will choose the Lord. And the final verse is Galatians 6:9. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. God is still on the throne. He's so much on our side, but he recognizes that Canada kind of let go of the reins, right? This is a Christian nation. We are founded on Christian principles. We're not a secular nation. We're not a multicultural nation. That's brainwashing. Those are lies straight from the pit of hell. We are a Christian nation. That's our foundation. And once upon a time, it served us well. And we opened up the door to this depravity, and now it's time for us to close it. So God's kind of saying, you got yourself into this mess. You need to repent, and you need to get actively involved in turning it around. So with that, join Action for Canada. Go Team Canada, go Team Action for Canada and Team Canada. Join us in protecting our children and taking this country back. So thank you. We'll see you next week. God bless you, and God bless Canada.
We are going to be in every town and every city, and we are going to build communities within these communities of like-minded people who are actually going to care for one another again and love on each other and give each other the help when they're down. We are going to use the teams and the people that build within chapters to support our businesses. The government's actions are completely 100% unlawful. Judgment will again be found on justice, and those with virtuous hearts will pursue it. You have a virtuous heart if you are here today pursuing freedom and righteousness. And then verse 23 comes along with a promise. God says he will turn the sins of evil people back on them. He will destroy them for their sins. I take great comfort in that because I serve a mighty living God who has allowed us to go through this season of discomfort because we as a nation had turned our backs on him and we need to get right. So I am just going to thank you so much. I'm going to say God bless you and God bless Canada.